All right, well, good evening, Clackamas County Coordinating Committee. I am Mayor Brian Hodson of the City of Canby, and we have, I think, what'll be a very jam-packed agenda. So we're gonna get started here with the Pledge of Allegiance. So Everett, if you throw up a beautiful picture of a flag there, that would be great. All right. Here we go. I pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America, and to the
to
republic
for which it stands,
one nation,
under God, indivisible,
with liberty and
justice for all.
All right, well, we'll go quick through some introductions. On my screen is the illustrious Paul Savas, our Clackamas County Commissioner and co-chair here for C4. Mr. Savas, there we go.
Good evening, everyone.
I will go down my list here as best I can and keep track of you all. Mr. Myers.
Good evening, everyone. Martin Myers. I'm the CPO rep to C4. I'm also with Redland Viola Fishers Mill CPO.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. Mayor Milch.
Hi, I'm Michael Milch, Mayor of Gladstone.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Let's see, Mr. Gornick.
Hello all, Paul Gornick from Oak Lodge Water Services representing sanitary districts.
Welcome, sir. Mr. Kaiser.
Mayor Kaiser of the beautiful city of Molalla, Oregon.
And jumping in here to the mix, Mayor Fitzgerald.
Julie Fitzgerald, Wilsonville Mayor.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Miss French.
Oh, hi, Sherry French, Water District Rep.
Perfect. Welcome. Mr. Marl.
Adam Marl, Oregon City Commissioner, and also serving as co-chair of the C4 Tolling Diversion Committee.
Welcome, sir. Councilor Sherman.
Hello, Brett Sherman, City Councilor, Happy Valley.
And pardon me, Kristen, but is it Kristen Sacco?
Sacco, Tualatin, and I am sitting in for Valerie Pratt, Councilor for Tualatin today.
Well, welcome to this wild and woolly bunch. Mr. Commissioner West.
Thank you, everybody. Yeah, Commissioner Ben West, my first C4 meeting, and I'm excited to be here with you guys tonight.
Well, welcome, sir. And the smart man himself, Mr. Brashear.
Well, good evening, and thank you for that introduction. Dwight Brashear. I am your transit director for SMART, which is owned and operated by the beautiful city of Wilsonville.
Perfect. Well, thank you, sir. Mr. Gronke.
I added Gronke. I'm the Clackamas County Citizen Rep to MPAC.
Welcome, sir. Mr. Buck.
Good evening, Joe Buck, Mayor of Lake Oswego.
Mr. Cernak.
Kenny Cernak, Hamlet Rep.
Thank you, sir. Let's see, and I think Miss Baumgardner.
Hello, Mary Baumgardner, Council President West Lynn, and I'm here for Rory Bieloslavsky, interim mayor. He'll be joining momentarily.
Perfect, thank you. Miss Stavengord.
Hello, everyone. Rebecca Stavengord, City Councilor for the City of Milwaukee.
And I think last but not least, Mr. Silva.
Hi, Matthew, representing fire districts.
Excellent. And then finally, the coordinator for this evening, Mr. Everett Wild.
Good evening. Yes, Everett Wild, staff for the evening.
Perfect. Well, thank you, sir. I know we've got a number of people that are attendees this evening. We've got Dana Webb, Jamie Lorenzini, Jamie Stasny from the county, Jane Civiletti, John Sierra with TriMet, Lisa Beatty with the mayor of Milwaukee, Marjorie Stewart, Mr. Mark Ottenod from Wilsonville, Mike Besner, also from the county, Paul Scarlett with ODOT, Rick and Sandra Hikari with ODOT. So we got a full boat this evening, and thank you all for being here. Yeah, so moving on the agenda, we've got some housekeeping things. I need a motion to approve the minutes of the March 2nd, 2023 C4 meeting.
So moved, Paul Gornick.
I got Mr. Gornick with the first motion. Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you, Mayor Kaiser. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? All right, anyone opposed? Those minutes are approved. Next up this evening, we have the C4 Executive Committee appointment process. It's the urban cities that need to select a representative to the executive board. So that executive board is Commissioner Sabas, myself representing the rural cities. We have hamlets and CPOs and special districts. And then, so we need a new city representative. Cities, have you discussed it all? Or has there been some comment? I'm seeing Mayor Buck nodding his head. Mayor Buck, do you have a volunteer?
I believe the cities, and Trent can correct me if I think we just may have discussed this at the subcommittee meeting, but we'd like to nominate Councilor Sherman to serve in the seat.
Okay. And so those representing the cities, any other recommendations, or is everybody good with Mr. Sherman? I can see it, just a show of hands, just to make sure from the city folks. All right, Brett, you're it, sir. A glutton for punishment. He had his first Region 1 ACT meeting this week. Now he's into the weeds with the C4 board. So welcome, sir. Thank you.
I'm honored to serve. Thank you so much.
Well, you do a great job, so I appreciate it. All right, that takes care of that. Moving into the statewide transportation improvement program STIP presentation. And I believe turn it over to Mr. Scarlett to get us started.
I'm bringing him over, just one moment.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad that I was sitting here kind of mystified as to where am I? I can't see myself. I can see the options for speaker. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight to present on our 24-27 state transportation improvement program, the STIP. It is a program that's 3-4 year cycle, and we are moving forward. I will try and go through the presentation as best as I can. I say that because normally Chris Ford, who is manager of the STIP program, is not able to make tonight's meeting. And so I will do my best to cover the various parts of the project. Everett, are you running the slides? Who's running the slides? I don't know for sure.
You should be able to share your screen if you would like to run them. And as you know, and as Mayor Hodson said, we've got a packed agenda tonight. We've got until about 7:15, including Q&A.
Okay, let me see. I think we forwarded the link for the presentation. Let's see if I can find it. Apologies about that. See if I can find what was sent to you.
So is the Everett, is the slide deck that's in the packet?
Yeah, that if you don't have them available, I can do it.
Yeah, why don't you give Paul a hand there and
Yeah,
on the slide deck.
Appreciate it.
Just one moment.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. So in 2024 to 27 STIP update. That's what I'll cover tonight as quickly as I can. We have reached a point where we're at public involvement process. Next slide, please. The contents of tonight's presentation will include a STIP overview, quickly funding categories and amounts, public review process, Region 1 draft list, and selection criteria overview, specific projects by category. Next slide. We have 3 categories that consist of the STIP, which is the State Transportation Improvement Program. We have capital program funds, which is the majority of the STIP, federal and state funds, construction project for highway system, public and active transportation projects. What's not included in the STIP are state-funded multimodal grant programs, maintaining and operating the systems, and revenue administrative functions. Next slide, please. So the 3 phases of the STIP development included funding allocation that took place back in 2020, and then again in 2021 to 2022, the project selections, and now we're at the public input or public involvement process now in spring of 2023. Next slide, please. The STIP, as is now, includes more than $3 billion in state and federal resources. A significant infusion, and I'll do my best not to read everything. You can see the slides yourself, but includes both House Bill 2017 and federal infrastructure bill funds. There are major federal and state funding in bridges, significant increases fund for public and active transportation, and increased funding for safety, as well as greater investment in local government programs and ADA curb ramps. Next slide, please. There are 6 program categories. There's Fix It, Safety, Highway Enhancement, which is essentially enhancing or enlarging the system, Public Active Transportation, Public and Active Transportation, excuse me, such as bicycle, pedestrian, local government programs, or partnership with cities and counties for priority projects, ADA ramps, it's a big focus, and other functions such as workforce development, planning, data collection, and other programs using federal monies. Next slide, please. This is a breakdown of the STIP by category. Overall, a third goes to maintaining the existing system through Fix It. The same amount collectively goes to the other ODOT funding programs to make improvements to the state transportation network. Almost 20% goes directly to local government for those priority projects. The remaining 11% by the graph you can see on the screen there goes to other, which are other federal programs to do planning work, data collection, workforce development, and other important functions. Next slide, please. The high-level description of the STIPs taken over the last 2 years, or 2 to 3 years. In 2021, we shared the draft 100% list that gets culled down over a year period time frame. And in 2020, we shared a 100% list. In spring, which is now, we're doing public comment opportunity or involvement opportunity process. And later this summer, the OTC will adopt the 24-27 STIP. And then pretty much there are, over the next 2 months, a number of opportunities to provide input. The OTC will, as already started, commence public involvement. We had our first open house on Monday. Program level public comments will focus on gathering input on potential impacts to our projects and programs. Region 1 staff will visit regional committees to gather comments. That's what I'm doing tonight as an opportunity. And there will be, already said, 3 events in regional. One occurred on Monday and one this Saturday on the 25th of April. I think other slides will go over that as well. Okay, next slide, please. I mentioned the open houses, one on Monday that occurred and Saturday in Beaverton at the Beaverton Library, on Tuesday in a couple weeks in Hood River at the fire station. There will be another open house. Okay. These are the websites to provide input and other if folks have questions, and we can share that later with the rest of folks. Next slide, please. Key questions. Essentially, we're looking at what are the impacts. The projects in the STIP have been collected and called down. What we really want from the open house and public input are what are the impacts that could impact the community for good or for worse. How can we mitigate potential negative impacts of a proposed project and ensure the project meets community needs? So those are the type of things and input we're looking for at the open houses. Region 1 draft list. You can see got a total of 630 million. It's broken out into different categories. The ADA program has a substantial amount, as well as bridges, 311 million. And it goes on down the list with preservation, operation enhanced, and various other programs. Next slide, please. Project selection factors, it's fairly consistent over the years. We're looking at engineering data analysis, where safety issues have occurred over a period of time, impacts on multimodal accessibility, greenhouse gas emission and equity, stakeholder input is key to how we select projects. Some program funds are allocated statewide, such as bridge and culvert programs. Others are regionally selected, such as operation, and draft list and funding amounts will continue to evolve. Next slide, please. And the themes of the R1 STIP funding, 75% funds have gone to ADA ramps and bridges. I say gone to because the project list is mostly completed. And of the remaining $150 million, there will be approximately 30 projects in buckets focused on safety, investment in urban arterial make up almost half of the non-ADA bridge funds, 10 projects on ODOT facilities, such as 82nd and local arts projects. Next slide. This is a map, not easily understood, but it's dot that shows where different projects are located. We'll skip these and go down to something that might resonate a little easier. Yeah, again, like Highway 26 and 212 projects are located, but you can keep going. In Clackamas County, which is relevant to this audience, we've got a number of projects. ADA and some safety and operation funds are region-wide, but there will be projects in Clackamas County. 4 projects, for example, will be on these are large projects, but ITS on I-5, systematic arts along I-205, Lake Oswego signals, US 26 electric vehicle infrastructure, essentially charging stations. 15 projects entirely in Clackamas County, amounting to about 110 million in feds and state funds. So, question looks like Jill Buck. What is ITS? Information technology system, I believe. Good question. Thank you. We have new construction reserve. We, just like probably many of you, we've seen the economy and the impacts of increase in all materials and different impacts based from the economy on our construction costs. And so we're having to make adjustments. Some of the funding categories are being used to pool, to reserve construction funds. And so ODOT will do its best to distribute construction funds after preliminary engineer and close a bit as evenly and effectively as we can. These are bridge projects throughout the region. I think we can keep going. And keep going. Yeah, this is just a number of slides are in this deck because it's been presented statewide, so you don't have to go through everything. You keep going. I think I'm just about done. This is an example of one of the projects, for example, in Clackamas County on OR 99, which is a safety pedestrian project. And we'll be looking at crosswalk improvements, ADA ramps and stop bars and so forth to improve safety at that location. Keep going. This is another project, for example, on US 26, Salmon Road to Lolo Pass. There will be a shared use path along the south side of US 26. So just an example of different types of projects in this STIP that will occur in Clackamas County. Okay. Again, different projects along different routes in the city and throughout. Keep going, please. Again, this is just another example of some improvements that's designated as part of one of the STIP project. This one at McLaughlin, at Arlington, and River Road. It's kind of an odd intersection that has a number of crashes and safety issues, and so some improvements with signal equipment and reconfiguration should help with that. Okay. Next slide. I'll try and others. Yeah, keep going, please. This is another example of a project within Clackamas County. It's surface repairs, so essentially paving from right now identified from 17th to Rusk on or 224. If you keep going, I'll try to close here quickly.
That's the end of my slide.
Okay, perfect. I see Ed Gronk has his hand up.
Yes, I noticed in one of your projects, I think it's $13 million you're going to spend on the 99E bridge going over the Clackamas River. What are you planning to do with that bridge?
I don't have the details of the project, specifically that one, as to what would be occurring. Oftentimes our bridge construction project consists of deck repair because of the amount of rut, and as a result, you need to replace the bridge joints because of all the number of vehicles that run over it and weakens it. Sometimes they're corrosive materials from the runoffs that requires the bridge to be replaced. I can look into that project and get more information, and that's certainly in our project list. It provides more detail as to what those projects consist of.
Well, I'm on the Citizens Advisory panel that has discussed that whole section of McLaughlin, and there was a brief mention of the bridge, but no specific details as to what was going to be done to it.
Okay, I can follow up with more information on that for you. I can get that maybe through Everett. Okay.
Absolutely.
I'll do that. Thanks. Looks like Martin has his hand up.
I appreciate it. With the abrupt loss of the UGB property and the lower reaches of Redland Road, I'm finding I really need to watch what's going on down there to try and read tea leaves to see what's going on. I understand that there's a Holly Lane Bridge for $8 million. That's a new one on me. I wonder if I could also ask for additional specific information, what is being proposed here, the timelines for it, and more further information, if that can be provided at some later date. Certainly.
Holly Lane Bridge, you said?
Yeah, the Holly Lane Bridge was
Okay.
$8.4 million over the Abernathy.
Okay.
All right.
More information for you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Do you want me to send you my email? I can do that real quick.
Sure, that'd be great. Thanks. And Rebecca, looks like your hand is up.
Thank you. Thanks, Paul, for all this information. I have two questions. One pertains to the fix-it category of the funds, and I'm wondering what if you can give maybe a little bit more information about the selection of culvert projects and when the process for those funds might start again for the next cycle.
Yeah, the culvert program is also a statewide project or program. And so Region 1 with the 4 other regions will certainly compete for those state dollars. But essentially the culvert program identifies culverts that needs repairing, whether it's replacing or repairing the floor of the culvert. And as we go into trying to I guess finalize a solution, oftentimes we have to do videoing and cleaning to actually identify what the exact fix is. So it requires some exploration and investigatory work to even determine what is the appropriate fix. So it sometimes takes a while. I don't know if that makes sense. We've done a number on I-84 and US 26 over the last year or two, and some we've completed, some we need money to do the videoing during the in-water works in the summer to actually figure out what is the right fix. It's hard to tell until you go into that level.
Yeah, that's helpful. I have a project in mind that I might follow up with you outside of the meeting on, and I'm wondering if while we're moving forward with this first phase of things, if there are elements of that that we might be able to build into the project that could meet the requirements. So I'd be happy to follow up with you outside of the meeting. And then my second question has to do with the 224 section from Southeast 17th to Rusk Road.
Yes.
I'm wondering if you can give more specific timing on that. I don't remember if you had mentioned a time frame. Thank you.
Oh, sure. It's a project that's in my area, the Metro East, but actually another area manager is managing it. I believe it's in the design phase. And so I can get information forwarded to you as to where things are at on that specific project.
Okay, that sounds great. So I'll just mention both of those and I'll send you a quick email.
Please, that would be great. Thank you. See Brett Sherman's hand up.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate it. Just a quick question. This is kind of a bigger picture question. It actually might be back to the group versus to you, but I seem to remember years ago when this process first started, we had the opportunity to kind of do some modeling on the various funding categories and, kind of where we would devote resources to it. And I don't remember I remember seeing a whole collection of different, variables we could kind of control, but I don't remember how the decision ultimately gets made as to where the various funding levels come from in the category. So can you just kind of help me understand that? Like, how do we decide? Bridges, obviously, we're like 900 years behind in funding our bridges for repairs in Oregon, so that's a whole different issue. But ADA, et cetera, had such a huge proportion of the resources. How does that get decided?
I would do the program probably huge injustice trying to come off the top of my head as to all the justification and rationale behind how the budget is allocated by programs. And so I will share the information, if you don't mind, with Chris Ford and others who are more expert in the background. I am involved in some of the scoping, how the projects get identified, kind of advanced, but in terms of all the bigger picture, I think it'd be better if I get some gather some information.
Follow-up would be fine. Thanks. I appreciate that.
Okay, thanks. I did see one other hand, Joe Buck.
Thank you, Paul. Just a quick question. Is ODOT doing any outreach, within Clackamas County to the specific jurisdictions that have the proposed projects to seek input that way to whether it be the city council, the county commission, you guys working with the staff, what's going on in that regard?
Well, I know I reached out, for example, to City Gladstone to share some information about one of the project that's on the list, OR 99 at Arlington Road. I think it's case by case. In some cases, I think Sandra Hikari is on the call as well, but we have a McLaughlin Investment Initiative project that we have, or program that we have connected with the local jurisdiction, a number of cities along 99 to proactively share what's being considered and shared. So in terms of the STIP, it's case by case. We do have the open house, for example, Clackamas County on Monday, there was an open house and folks visited and we were able to share the different projects throughout the region, but also specifically to Clackamas County.
Well, I guess just as a feedback then on getting feedback, we're always working to improve our relationship and communication with ODOT and how ODOT interacts with our communities. And, I just can't imagine what, community members even are aware of these various projects as certainly as leaders of these communities. First time I think some of us are seeing these, right? So I think it'd be great, getting that more on the ground perspective by coming to the individual cities that have projects impacted to get that feedback. Talking directly with elected officials and staff at those levels are really important, helping ODOT get that on the ground perspective that, you just can't beat having those eyes who are on the ground every day. We know ODOT officials can't be, everywhere with the entire state seeing those conditions. So I think it would mean a lot to communities if ODOT did that direct outreach on these various projects.
Yeah, I just met with Lance Calvert today on a different project on OR 43, so I can coordinate with him. Thanks. Mayor Kaiser. Hi.
Hi, Paul. How are you tonight?
I'm making it. I'm good. Thanks.
Hey, thanks for coming out last summer. I apologize. It was the hottest day of the year and we had to go walk 2 miles, but it wouldn't be a night of seeing you without reminding you that we're still out here and Highway 211 is just a little bit better than it was last year. And we'd love to see some more asphalt someday.
Okay. I understand. I'll
Perfect.
continue to
Thank
share
you,
that
sir.
upline. Yep. Thanks.
All right, anything
Being
else?
cognizant of the time, so. Yeah.
Anything else for Mr. Scarlett on the presentation here? No? All right. Paul, thank you very much for the presentation and the update. And I'm sure we are all looking forward to you getting out in our cities and teeing up some work for the next, 10, 15, 20 years.
Do what I can.
All
Good
right.
seeing you again.
Yes,
All
you
right,
too, Paul. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
I'm sure everyone sees on your screen too, down in the Q&A, one of the Sandra Hikari just updated or put out a couple of links there too. So take a look at those and study those, share those around as well. So, all right. Next on the agenda is the I-205 tolling EA C4 comment letter. And I believe Everett and then probably I think Commissioner Savas are kicking this conversation off.
I don't have much by way of kickoff. All the links, thank you, Councilor Sherman, for dropping them in. I will send those out afterwards as follow-up to everyone via email as well. Commissioner Savas, did you want to kick off the 205 letter?
Yeah, sure. And Everett, don't post it yet, but prepare to post the draft EA letter that's in the packet on the screen, but don't put it up yet. Just be ready for it. So hello, everyone. I want you to know that some members of C4 and others have been meeting for over a year on the in our group called the C4 Diversion Subcommittee. tolling subdivision committee. We've been meeting at, during the lunch hour typically, for the most part, and we've all been getting presentations from ODOT. We've been asking questions, and collectively, our work is with our good work at Trent and staff and Everett, we've got a draft letter that really contains, I think, the overall sentiments and a little of the frustrations you can read in there with that. And so, this is the first swipe that staff did. No one else has touched it or influenced it. I have some suggestions, but also I just want you to know that I have heard from a number of you that you want to see something, and you want to see something stronger than maybe what did you either read in this letter, or maybe what you read and maybe the letter that's been circulated amongst the cities and the county and others. And I also want you to know that I expect that the letter from the county here in a week or two will be stronger than, at least the mayor's letter, I believe. But I know we were trying to get balance there between all the jurisdictions and get something we can all agree on. So I don't have the city's letter in front of me, but the issue for tonight and the limited time we have is this draft letter. Just want to let you know that for some of the C4 members, this is your only chance tonight. This letter is your only chance. For the cities, they can send a letter individually if they choose to do that independently, as this is the county and other jurisdictions. But for us collectively, I think it'd be powerful to come up with something we can all agree on. So just want to let you know, just because you have a draft letter doesn't mean this is the way it needs to be or the way we want it. This is really up to you all. So I don't know if any of our C4 subdivision committees members are here and want to opine on that per se. I know that Brett Sherman's attended a lot of those meetings, Councilor Mary Baumgardner, Mayor Rory Blastowski, Adam Marl, and others have attended. I think Mayor Hudson, you've attended a couple, haven't you? Yeah. So, Mayor, I'll hand it back to you and let you run the rest of the meeting on this one. And I have a small edit, but I want to hear from everyone else first before I inject. So.
Okay, thank you, Paul, for kicking that off. So I'm going to presume that everyone's had a chance to read it. And I'm sure, knowing this group is fun and loving that we all are, we have some changes that we want to make to this letter. And so how do y'all want to go about this? Do you want to throw those change? I mean, the sooner we get this done, the better. So who wants to take the first shot?
I see Martin Myers has his hand up.
Thank you. I didn't see that there on the corner there. Mr. Myers, what is your thoughts, sir?
I'm going to try and be as brief as I can. I do have some thoughts on it. And it really goes to this letter. And although I've not seen it, I'd like to make these comments towards the mayor's letter and the county's letter and anybody else that's going to send a letter here. First of all, what was drafted by the county is beautiful. All of your writing is always great. And this is another fine example of it. I'm concerned, however, it's insufficient for the purpose. Last month, Mandy Putney told us that the environmental assessment was not a policy statement. It was not a financial commitment. It begs the question, what is it? And in my perspective, I thought about it afterwards, and I think the best way to describe this is an application to a tribunal, a third-party tribunal, in order to be able to do something that other parties might not want them to do. So the best way to look at this is perhaps as the initiation of litigation, or at least an application to a tribunal for permission to do something. Now, we know tolling is coming. We know it's going to be here for the cost of the bridge and the improvements. The question before us and what the letters have to be addressing is whether or not this is going to be tolling into perpetuity. That's really the issue, and that's what the Federal Department of Transportation is going to have to weigh in on. And the EA is their submission. It's their proof. It's what they put forward in order to make their case. It is an expert statement. It is created by parties that were hired by ODOT, not within house. They were hired by ODOT as experts. There are people who are qualified in this area through education or long-term experience. So the ones with the lengthy CVs. And this was their product, and it's 100 and some pages that I could not make my way through. Who I'm looking at tonight are not experts. We're all lay persons. We have to assume that, with the exception perhaps of Mr. Brashears, who may be qualified out of any of us to do this. The problem is this, and I see it in this letter, and I'm afraid I'll see it in all the letters. Lay persons are not entitled to give opinions. We aren't qualified to give opinions, especially when those opinions are based upon hypothetical facts. Hypothetical here is that there's going to be tolling, and the opinion is what's going to happen out of it and how diversion and mitigation will work. These are the issues that the EA addresses that we are concerned about. And I'm afraid that what we have come up with is not sufficient for the purpose. An expert testimony will put it up here. A layperson's testimony, in order to attempt to rebut an expert testimony, will always fall below it. We simply are not qualified to make opinions. Laypersons testify to what they witness, what they know from direct knowledge. We just aren't qualified for this. So I'm afraid that we need to, what I would like to do is, the letter's great, and I'm not sure we're going to get any further on it, but what I would like to do is to bring to the fore the very many in-house experts that the county and hopefully the jurisdictions have used in creating their own responses. These are the parties that have potentially the expert qualifications in order to state an opinion. We need to bring those people specifically forward. I would talk, I would drop footnotes, I would describe these people by their names if we're entitled to do that. I would list their qualifications if at all possible, and I would make the statements by them, not by a political elected official from the county or from any other jurisdiction. We just don't have the qualifications to make that. And the evidence that we're putting forward, a 1.5-page letter, is going to be insufficient to rebut a 100+ page environmental assessment. So my suggestion is to bring those people forward wherever it is that we're talking about concerns. They need to be talking about failures of the EA in giving this information. Information that's missing is just simply insufficient. The EA has to be described as not doing for the ODOT what ODOT intends for it to do, and that is to put itself in the position of perpetual tolling. The final thing I would add to the letter, if at all possible, and I'm just going to put this out there for everybody to shoot it down, is to finish with a final paragraph that says something to the effect of, we understand the severity and the confusion that is presented by the EA and the consequences that will flow from it. We are in the process of hiring our own expert at a cost of $10, $40, $60, $100,000, whatever it takes to hire an expert of the same or better qualifications in order to rebut this statement. I face this with clients who want to come in with their own layperson testimony to rebut an expert report. It just simply won't work. It's saving pennies and nickels and losing on the dollars. There's millions and millions of dollars of infrastructure, time that we and our children will all spend in traffic trying to get over the Oregon City Bridge and elsewhere, and all the tolls that we would potentially pay into perpetuity. This is our chance to make the best shot. That's my thought. That's my perspective. I appreciate everybody's effort, but I feel pretty strongly about this, that we've got to raise the level of these responses to something that would qualify to beat an expert opinion on what is going to happen out of these hypothetical tolling situations. Thank you.
Yeah, Martin, if I may, I'm just going to inject real fast, and I apologize, I didn't say this early on. So there are a team of experts working with the county, for the county and with the cities. So there is that expert opinions coming, and that'll be what the county is going to be talking about here in the next week or so. So that will happen. This is our opportunity and our capacity to do what we can. So I assure you that what you're talking about as far as that expertise, it will be present. It will be formidable.
Thank you. Really good to hear that. I have one question I want to ask the group, because I've not had the answer to it. Are local commutes, local traffic included within the diversion analysis or not? Can anybody address this? Has ODOT told this is? I was told to go look at the EA and I couldn't find it. Does anybody have the answer to that?
The quick answer is that the local street analysis was inadequate and, in our opinion, incomplete.
I want to just jump in super quick and piggyback on what Commissioner Savas just said and address that. We just were briefed as a commission, and the team being put together is from the outside to support this issue around tolling is quite impressive on the county level. And from really impressive, not just legal, but when we look at land use, when we look at transportation, the whole thing, the whole package is quite robust. And so we are going to rely on those experts. And I don't know if you guys know this, just a heads up, that EA, the county asked for 30 extra days. They're going to give us 60 days for public comment. The county asked for 90 days because it's more than 192 pages. When you look at the appendices, which is tough to get through, it's over 2,000, around 2,000 pages of techno bureaucratic gobbledygook. And it is, so they didn't even give us enough time to have a 90-day period to just kind of get through that and ask the questions and analyze it through that EA process. And so I think that, yeah, I agree with Commissioner Savas that this is an opportunity to bring another way to communicate with this group about their concerns. And I want to just say it's okay for lay people to push back against the expert. There are roads, our cities, our communities, and that in itself is a super important voice. And so it is important to rely on the experts, but I think it's also a really good framework to bring our voice to the table, because that's what we're here to do.
Okay, Mayor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Commissioner Savas. I just wanted to add a point that I think it would be good to add that transit should be studied as a mobility alternative in greater detail. So perhaps we could add content about studying transit options and related capital improvement costs, because all of this was supposed to work on the basis of people being able to also use transit.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. For those of you who did read the material, what's not, their premise is essentially assuming that there is no transit along that corridor. So point well taken. Councilor Sherman.
Thank you, and I appreciate the perspectives. I think Commissioner West, you're absolutely right. Part of the reason we're here as electeds is we've been put in place to push back on things, to make decisions, and to try to move the needle when we can, even though we're not experts. And I will say, Mr. Myers, you are too smart by half. I appreciate your perspectives. You always bring a really a good, knowledgeable perspective to the table, and I do appreciate that. I think, from our city's perspective, we are going to have our own letter with a lot more kind of specificity and detail as to how it impacts, us specifically, because I think, one of the things as I read through this draft letter, I appreciated that it was concise and that it brought it down to kind of 3 key points with action steps associated with each. So it was a much more kind of a simplistic, direct approach at hitting it, because there are so many facets of the EA that that we could write 192 pages about the 192-page document. And even as a layperson, in reading through that, I mean, an example would be they give they test 50 intersections, whether they're going to be failing or not, in 2027 and 2045. But if an intersection was already going to be failing in 2045, it doesn't count as an intersection that's failing because of this situation, these changes. And so, a lot of that, it just is somewhat misleading and not complete. So I think if we've got the time and the capability of enhancing this current letter, that's great. I do think there's going to be a lot of communication from the various jurisdictions that is going to bring in a lot more detail to the mix. So, but very much appreciate the comments and supportive of whatever we put out there as a group. Thank you.
Mayor Buck.
Thank you, Commissioner. I kind of concur with Councilor Sherman. I think that I know that our city is doing it, and hopefully I'm sure the other cities as well, I know, are doing the same analysis on especially on how the portions of the EA that pertain to those local streets, right? Very important. And we'll be submitting our own comments from the technical team has really been doing such a great job deep diving into this. I am curious, though, if there's someone, we have a great group here tonight. Is there anyone in this call who can kind of take us through the process here? Because, you know, let's get real, right? We've been working with ODOT for a long time. We can send all the ODOT letters, feedback on the EA, you know, all day long, and make all of the fantastic points that we're going to make. And I think we know exactly what we're going to get from that. So is there someone here who can kind of take us through what the process is going forward? We submit our comments on the EA. Obviously, we're asking for the EIS, and then what happens? And I'm kind of curious too, is there, are there any points in particular that, you know, these comment letters that these comments that we make in the EA, are there any particular types of comments that are going to be relevant if there's some kind of legal challenge down the road?
Okay, so Mayor, I know that Jamie Stasny's in the audience, and maybe when we're done with our comments, we can get her to opine and explain what the process is, so we all understand it. So
that'd be great.
So, and we can circle back with you when she's online here. Commissioner Morrow.
Thank you. I just wanted to add on what's already been said. I don't think that this is a letter of lay people. If I talk to my staff, as all of you have, about this issue, I think many of them will tell you that this is the most interaction they've had with other jurisdictional staff in a long time for any other issue. And so I know that my city staff and the city staff of those who are here at this meeting right now have been in constant communication, as well as with the county staff, about how we want to be responding to this. And let's keep in mind that they're the ones who drafted this letter in the first place. And so while we as elected officials are putting our name on it, I believe that with confidence that we have the professional expertise already behind us. And when we look at sticking to the expertise numbers, let's also keep in mind that the numbers they're using for these forecasting details are from 2015, because those are the most recent numbers we have to show us about our current traffic situations. And we know that in each of our communities that the circumstances in 2015 are vastly different from what we have right now, whether that be from COVID changes and then switching back to hopefully being done with COVID. There are just so many things that have changed since 2015 and the numbers that they're currently using. So I would venture to say that even though we do have the technical expertise behind us, that our voices as elected officials who actually live in these communities and aren't just ODOT consultants who don't live in these communities do have something valuable to say when it comes to what's actually happening on the ground. And lastly, I'll just say, I think that the 3 points really encapsulate the conversations that the C4 Tolling Diversion Subcommittee has had over the last year or so. We've had a lot of really fruitful conversations. And for me personally, from Oregon City, and concerns over how this will impact Main Street, the economic impacts was something that I thought was severely lacking in the EA. And this goes to many issues I have with the EA, but this is one of my top ones. And this just gets to my point that regardless of if this is a policy document or not, the EA that we're commenting on, what we're trying to point out is that all of the information that's been pushed is not sufficient for the expanse of this project, and that it needs to be an EIS. The way they got a categorical exclusion, I keep asking over and over how that was granted, and I still don't understand how they were able to find that there was no significant environmental impact to get that categorical exclusion. And so I recognize that this is not a policy topic, but let's also recognize that when we point out the flaws in the policy, that gives us more ground to say that this needs to be done again, this needs to be delayed, and it needs to be an EIS. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mayor Rory.
Hey, thank you, Commissioner Savas, and thanks everybody for the great comments tonight. I have 2 things to add to the discussion. I wanted to echo what Mayor Fitzgerald said, and just about the transit topic. I found it very interesting when taking a layperson's look at the EA and going through the technical report, that they studied transit time, like how long a bus would take to go down certain streets, but didn't actually study the transit system, or how that as an alternative, how people could use that to, you know, they tell us people will just use transit, but they just studied the time that it would take for certain buses to go down certain streets, but not at all like the sufficiency of the transit system for what they're doing. So I would support more language on the topic of transit. But the main thing I wanted to say was that I realized recently when looking at the list of 50 intersections that they studied, that they left out a couple of key intersections, at least in West Lynn, that get backed up severely by traffic already. And I was shocked to see that they didn't pick them. I'm thinking of one, Willamette Falls Drive and Osman Road, where it's a 4-way stop that backs up way out into the Stafford Hamlet almost every day. And so I was just thinking we could add in a little language on the first page in the bottom part where it talks about they haven't adequately demonstrated how it would work, and talks about the multiple goals related to diversion, safety, but then and add in something, say they also failed to study intersections that we know should have been studied. I was wondering if other city officials here, county officials noticed that if there were any roads that they would have liked studied, but were not included in the list. So I just wanted to raise that in case anybody would like to see that added in, but thank you.
Mayor Hodson.
Thank you, Commissioner. I guess my question or maybe my comments on this letter is I do believe that we probably had our best people on it, and it wasn't written by, no offense to the commissioners, but wasn't written by commissioners. There's been some dialogue about this letter and perhaps being worded stronger. And I'm not quite sure what can be stated differently or stronger. I think, Rory's comments were spot on when we talk about transit. I mean, there's not, I don't see the economic benefits that tolling is going to add to Clackamas County. In fact, I think that it's going to further impact the economic growth of Clackamas County and put us even further behind Washington County in terms of that development. And then again, the economic impact on those that travel 205 to get to Multnomah and Washington counties for jobs and to work. I don't know how much more we can, pound on that, but it just does not seem to be, and those items don't seem to be heard. And that's frustrating to many of us in Canby that traveled 205 to get to most anywhere.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts, Mayor. Mayor Kaiser.
Yeah, I'd like to touch on what Mayor Belostowski said about the studies. With Malala, I think ODOT thinks truck drivers are stupid because they're going to get it right off at Woodburn. They're going to go right up to 11. They're going to go through Estacada, then up through Sandy, and then they're going to cut over to I-84 and avoid the tolls completely. And there was nothing about our city in any of the diversion. And they think that nobody's going to use us. They're not thinking right, because I'm a truck driver and this would be the route I'd go to save money on tolls and to get around all the traffic.
Okay. Jamie, I want to put you on the spot. You heard some of the questions that Mayor Buck and raised, and maybe some other questions. You want to just give everyone a thumbnail sketch of what the process looks like between now and the April 21st deadline?
Sure, happy to. Thank you, Commissioner Savas. It's good to see you all. Happy to be with you this evening. So the process right now is that we are in the public comment period, of course, for the EA, which ends on the 21st. As Commissioner Savas said, the Board of County Commissioners will be considering their letter at a policy session next week. Their materials were recently posted on the website, so those are available for review. It's a starting point for their letter, just as this is for yours. So there will be much discussion, I'm sure. So that will be discussed next week. And as Commissioner Savas also said, we're working on a staff technical letter. That staff technical letter will be appended to the county board's letter. And that will happen formally through a policy session on the 19th. at I think it's 1:15. So we have some upcoming events with the Board of County Commissioners. As you've all been discussing, right now we're in an EA period. And the process for that, as ODOT has outlined for us, is 21st, when they've collected all the comments, they'll take all those, they'll review them, they'll have to respond to the ones that are salient to the EA itself. So they will go through that process. I don't know how long that will take them. I'm imagining they'll have quite a bit to get through. And then they will either have to do additional analysis, or potentially they could have FHWA issue a FONSI at that time, a finding of no significant impact. I think that's highly unlikely at this time, and I believe ODOT does as well. I think they know they're going to need to do additional analysis. They have also shared with us that they anticipate doing what's called an amended EA. So they'll basically go in and amend the existing EA document with this additional analysis. And what we have heard from them is then they will get their finding of no significant impacts. They're confident with that, and that they will take that amended EA back out for public comment. That's a big concern because we don't know if our comments will be addressed, right? So that's one of the issues, and that's one of the reasons why we've heard a lot of ideas about elevating this to an EIS, an environmental impact statement process, which is in your letter, I believe, as well. Elevating the process to that level will be from FHWA. Instead of a finding of no significant impact, it would be what's called a record of decision, or ROD. Also, FHWA will have to acknowledge that there are significant impacts that cannot be mitigated. That is one of the big differences between an EA and an EIS. And I think we've had this conversation at this table before. So with an EA, all significant impacts must be mitigated as part of the approval. There's a lot of nuance in what an impact is and what mitigation is. So I won't go there. But and then with an EIS, that they have to acknowledge there are significant impacts. We can't mitigate all of them. We've mitigated what we can, and then their application to FHWA puts it up to FHWA to decide whether or not those impacts are acceptable, and if they want to issue the record of decision. So that's kind of the path we're on right now. I think that the county commissioners will be asking also for, and have already acknowledged requests for elevating to an EIS. And so that is the direction that we are moving, and that is advised by all our big technical team that Commissioner Savas outlined. So I'm happy to answer other questions if you have them. I hope that answered your question, Mayor Buck.
Yeah, thank you, Jamie. Can I just ask, so it's up to FHWA whether or not they have to do the EIS?
That's my understanding. And I did learn yesterday, and I haven't verified this, but I learned yesterday that there is no precedent in the US for doing an EIS for a tolling project. So we haven't researched that, but we've heard all of the tolling projects have been done under EAs. So it is a high bar, but this is different. It's different than what they've done in the past. So, and it's the first project of its type in our region. So we think it still should be elevated to an EIS, but it would be a lofty goal to achieve.
And do we, so then do we know, is there any additional level of review that could be required beyond FHWA?
Oh, beyond FHWA. I don't believe so. I believe it all falls to FHWA, but I can verify that. I have a meeting tomorrow morning where I can ask that question. I can circle back with you, and I can have Everett get that answer out to everyone.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and Jamie, could you just share with everyone if the FHWA basically rubber stamps this, what options do the counties and others have?
If a FONSI is issued or a record of decision, depending on which process they use, there is an opportunity to file a complaint, which would be in federal court against FHWA, and then that would likely potentially lead to litigation. ODOT, it would not be filed at ODOT. ODOT would likely be what they call an intervener in the case if this were to happen.
Thank you, Jamie. Any questions for Jamie or any of us folks on the letter? I do want to say that the mayor's letter, I love to hear from some of the mayors if you feel, but there's 4 requests in the mayor's letter. And I would say that if ODOT does not respond to those adequately, I sense from some of the mayors I've spoken to that, you know, it's not going to make them very happy. And I think that are inclined probably to make a stronger, have a stronger response if they simply do not accommodate those requests. I will say that, you know, as Jamie laid out there, that the county commission is inclined to, you know, take whatever action is necessary if they simply just try to rubber stamp this. I feel, and I appreciate her new information. I just feel that our situation here and all the claims of, you know, trying to get an improvement in air quality, you know, CO2 gases, all those things, and get people to take an alternative and yet not offer any alternatives, I think flies in the face of a lot of the goals that the state has set out and we have set out. And so I can't imagine that anywhere else in the country they're going to toll all the lanes and not offer any alternatives in this in this kind of a setting. So it's just a unique area, and I'm just hoping that bodes well for us. Mayor Hodson.
Thank you, Commissioner. I guess just a couple of questions maybe that are stemming off of this letter and our conversation today, but where do we stand? I guess two questions. One, where do we stand? I know West Linn, Oregon City have taken kind of a legal approach on this whole tolling and these matters. Where does that stand? And is Clackamas County preparing to take similar action, or, you know, stand with those cities that are moving forward with that? So that's my first question.
Mayor Rory.
Great question, Brian. Mayor Hodson. So I think that right now, I don't want to say anything that would prejudge anything, but I think we're just going through the process of going through this EA, commenting. I know Oregon City kind of talked during our joint meeting that we had about taking legal action. I think that the main legal avenue right now is just through this NEPA, National Environmental Policy Act process that will then either result in a FONSI finding or more analysis required. And I think that's the main, I mean, really, I think legislative action is a key component. You know, the legislature can amend, change the plan at any time if they so choose. But I haven't heard of any court case coming, if that makes sense, other than going through this process, which could lead to judicial review if we're not satisfied with the process.
Well, I guess that leads into my second question, so I appreciate you teeing that up. What is currently at the legislature to, I don't know, course correct on this thing, or if anything? I'm doing the best I can to follow everything that's going on a couple of different fronts, but I'm not sure I've seen anything or heard anything regarding this. And then I have one more question.
Jamie, you want to take that, or do you want me to take it?
I can take a stab at it. I'll share, Mayor Hodson, that the letter that was sent to all of the legislative delegation today, which I believe many of you have seen, asks for a public hearing of one of the tolling bills. It is not specific, just says a hearing would be desirable so we can have a conversation at the legislature about tolling. I think that is the focus right now, maybe not on any one particular bill, but on having that conversation. I am not confident that that conversation will happen, but I think that is the focus right now that I've been hearing. And Commissioner Savas, perhaps you want to add some more detail.
Yeah, what I would add is that, people have rightfully pointed out that even if the legislator were to have a hearing and act, any kind of bill would need to be signed by the governor, and the governor has veto power. So, I guess there will be a point in time here, whether it's before sine die or thereafter, where if there's probably not any kind of a immediate action by the legislature that's satisfactory to everyone, I guess we all have options at that point. But I think it'd be pretty clear where we are if there's before July 1st, I'm assuming, if not sooner, we'll have a better direction. And I'm sure some jurisdictions here are going to take some stronger action, and don't be surprised if the county is one of them.
Well, that's good to hear, and that's important. I guess my last question is as this conversation on tolling I-205 has been off and running, and now it's expanded to potentially other stretches of, so we know I-5 is on the docket for that to be looked at. And so that obviously increases the impact to more communities and whatnot. I'm curious, are we getting any support from other cities and counties that are being looked at for potential tolling? Are they now paying attention to what's going on here in Clackamas County to offer up support to what's going on?
Well, maybe this might be a good segue for Mayor Buck and others. You all went back to Washington, D.C. I can't speak for the mayors, but anyone want to take a stab at that? Mayor Buck?
Well, so yeah, thank you, Commissioner Savas. Great question, Mayor Hodson. So the letter that went out today, we're talking about the logo letter, right? And so we tried to get as many jurisdictions as possible throughout the area to sign on to the logo letter, and we could not get some of our partners, especially in Washington County, to sign on to. So we certainly got every affected jurisdiction here in Clackamas County to sign on. We appreciate everyone who did, but it's been tough. I mean, one of the stark realities here, right, is that 217 and 26 are not a part of the RMPP. They are currently being fully funded by the transportation taxes that we all pay and that we will continue to pay on top of paying the tolls. So we are, the mayors do have a actual separate mayor's letter that we are planning to send out to follow on to the letter that was sent today with the 4 asks. We'll kind of reiterate it. But to give a sense, I do think that there are many legislators. I mean, we understand their schedule down there, right? They're considering so many bills, and there's so much. I think, honestly, a lot of them don't really have an idea of really what is going to take place, that we are looking at tolls on a freeway under construction that they have agreed to fully fund projects in other jurisdictions, and while asking Clackamas County to pay tolls to drive on a roadway before we can even start doing the work. So, I mean, it's so backwards, and we're trying to give that local flavor on the ground, guys, that this just does not make sense to the average Oregonian who's using these roadways. If we're about a regional approach, we're all paying the statewide transit tax. We're all paying the new vehicle tax. We're all paying the taxes that came about in House Bill 2017. Why is it that we're not equally sharing in these goals? And then, as Commissioner Savas said, working together to meet these other goals of the RMPP in terms of, so we're trying to help these folks get, because I think they're just hearing, oh, people don't like tolls because, it involves paying money and they're against that. But it's more than that. It seems very unjust and just fundamentally unfair at just a very basic level, for this small area. So we are talking to our legislators. I mean, because that's the thing. We have the EA. We're responding to the EA. I think we all know where that's going. And so I think as much as we can talk to our elected officials down there in Salem and say, you guys need to, a lot of them were not there in 2000 when House Bill 2017 passed, and get them to really understand the ramifications that it's having and how we can take a step back and do this in a better way, a more equitable way, a just way, a fair way for everyone region-wide.
Okay. So I just brought up the logo letter. I hope you can all read it and it's not microscopic.
Yeah, thank you, Everett. Could you just put the logos up there so everyone can see it? Our neighbor to the south, our neighboring county to the south, Marion County, signed on to this letter. They are pretty aware that they could be really, they're adjacent to the Boone Bridge, right? So they're impacted by this. So they signed on. Others have, but Washington County, as Mayor Buck pointed out, Washington County, we didn't get a lot of signatures there, but they're not impacted. They got a pass. I think that is, they're getting their projects funded and they get a pass on tolling. That part to me, I don't think is fair. But
we do have the city of Sherwood from Washington County that signed on, and the city of Aurora from Marion County.
Right. So Commissioner West and then Mayor Hodson.
I wanted, Mayor Buck, that was said beautifully, and you were 1,000% correct. Brian, Mayor Hodson, I think you bring up a good question. One county that would have signed on to that letter that is adjacent and their entire commission is really upset about tolling is actually Yamhill County. Another county of South. So that's an easy logo to get on that letter. And I also have heard when we were at AOC, my first AOC late last year, there were a number of counties that were worried about us just being the first, right? So maybe working with AOC to see if we can get other stakeholders throughout the state to be willing to maybe say just in principle, we're not okay with this. Other counties that are strong allies to Clackamas that just aren't in the metro area. I think Marion and Yamhill counties are examples of that. When I was in DC, I had robust conversations with Lori Chavez-DeReamer and her staff, and they are trying to overturn every rock to federally make this difficult to have happen on 205. They're just looking in every possible place, talking to experts on this issue on a federal level. I know that her office is making this a priority. And, I think our legislators need to and honestly, coming from, just being new to the job, but we've been squawking about this for a while, and it just wasn't House Bill 217. It was House Bill 3055 too. And a lot of our legislators in Clackamas County maybe didn't read that piece of legislation, but that was the implementation of tolling. And now some of them are feeling the pressure in Clackamas County and are like, oh yeah, we don't like tolling now. Well, I hope that we can talk to them and maybe find a way to help them advocate to get those bills heard. There are 16 legislators in Clackamas that touch Clackamas County, 16. And maybe that Clackamas, we can work with that caucus to try to put some pressure to get those bills heard. And then I think we also have a loud collective voice in supporting the petition to vote on tolling. That's readily out there and that's being signed right now. If the legislature doesn't want to act, we have the ability to get that petition signed so the voters in Clackamas County can choose. And that is another alternative that every one of us in our communities have the ability to help promote to get our citizens to sign that petition initiative.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner. Mayor Hodson.
No, I'm just going to echo Commissioner West's comment there about, does it become a matter of pushing for a vote? And if it is the referendum piece, then, and that's the only method that we have to be able to push for that, then so be it. That just makes things, I think, more unpleasant than what they've been. The other piece is that we keep hearing when I think when we meet with ODOT people and hear these presentations is, what's an alternative? If this is not it, then what's the other option for highway funding? And I know, and I don't know what that is either. I mean, the only thing that's not been, I think, put in fully into place is the vehicle mileage tax angle of things. And I don't know if is it time to put things on pause and have that conversation again? I don't know. I don't know if that's the right thing or not, but the tolling piece seems it is moving forward. And I mean, we're going to go kicking and screaming, I think, with this the whole way. So thanks.
Mayor Rory?
Thank you. I was actually going to bring up the initiative petition as well. It's also out there. As Commissioner West said, I happen to know somebody affiliated with it. I'm sure you probably do, Commissioner, but it's gaining a lot of signatures. And I don't think the legislature understands that if they don't do anything, it's going to get on the ballot and they're going to lose the whole thing. But in my opinion, it actually may be a good thing, because then they'll have to work a lot harder and have a lot more transparency, public involvement, and things that we're not having right now, to actually be able to toll a stretch of road. But I just think it's kind of the elephant in the room that people aren't talking about, but it could upend the whole thing next year. But that's also out there. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Rory, Mayor Rory. The one thing that came up Monday night at the R1 Act, Mayor Hodson heard this, Councilor Sherman, others, you know, and Mayor Hodson did touch on it with the VMT, the vehicle miles travel. That was anticipated to be the replacement for gas tax, right? They did not foresee, or I didn't foresee, they did not share that they had tolling in this region-wide tolling, congestion pricing for all lanes. So that was not in our horizon. And the same token is we all get our split, right? For every $1 of gasoline, gas tax, you know, we get, the counties get 30 cents, the state gets 50, and the cities get 20, and yet they're not even offering that for the tolling revenue. So while they're protecting their funding, they're not looking at us. And by the way, where's that conversation happening? You know, when do they get the counties and the cities, who are really the big stakeholders in roads, along with the state, right? We're all in this together, but yet we're not having that conversation. And I think that is problematic in this state. I don't know how other states work, but it just seems to me we ought to be partners and be treated like partners, as opposed to being dictated to and having things prescribed upon us that are just wrong. The other thing that, you know, and none of you heard this before, but maybe not all, and I think it's really important to say, is that we got behind this project because of the diversion through Oregon City and West Lynn and others, right? That was our reason. And that was only happening at rush hour. And this tolling is going to be an incentive for people to divert now 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it defeats the purpose of the project for us, in that it was supposed to be our congestion or our diversion relief. It is not going to be diversion relief. It's probably going to be diversion worse than it is today. And that's our concern. And by the time they stack up the other cost, which is the regional mobility pricing, the congestion pricing, on top of that, that financial incentive to divert and the impacts aren't even being measured in this EA. And that's fundamentally the problem here as well. We're not seeing the whole picture. We're seeing a little slim snapshot. And that's wrong. So I don't see any other hands up. I have one edit I'd like to make. Everett, if you could just put our letter up, or the C4 letter up, it's the second paragraph. I just have one suggested change, and then I think we kind of got a pretty good idea, at least recorded, what you all said about what you'd like to see. And if you could expand that to the second paragraph where it starts out with C4. Yeah, so it says, so the first sentence reads, C4 has commented on the progress of the I-205 capital and toll projects since 2017. So period. So after that, I would like to insert the primary reason our communities, so I'm adding the primary reason in front of the primary reason our communities have long advocated for a solution to the bottleneck created by the last 2-lane segment of I-205 in Oregon, which was caused by highway where after the word caused, it should read, was that it's highway, it caused, I'm sorry. I gotta read my notes here, and I don't write very well, so the words which has caused would be replaced, but what was that? It is the highway, I'm mucking this up. Was that it causes highway drivers to reroute, essentially. So he's just emphasizing that the primary reason we got behind this was, again, that the diversion, and this is going to cause drivers to reroute. So that's all I have. But we definitely got your edits recorded, but they're not typed up. So does anyone have anything they want to add? I guess this is your last call.
So, Commissioner Savas, I'm not sure if I captured your comment fully. So let me know if I did not do that. I have been listening and doing some track changes as you've been discussing, and have included a couple of things in here. Not all of them I've been able to craft language for just yet, but I've been going along. So I'm happy to go through the document and show what I captured, and we can take it from there.
Yeah. Okay, so after the word which, yeah, the next word would be was that it caused highway drivers to reroute. And if it needs to be wordsmith, feel free to wordsmith it accordingly.
So I also heard concern about lack of transit, and as an alternative option, that the EA had a study on the timing of transit and how that would change, but not on the overall transit system and its viability. I can craft language about that. I also heard a comment about ODOT has failed to study several intersections that already see significant diversion. Mayor Bialostowski, I missed the intersection that you mentioned. I'm happy to add in that one or other examples if people have specific examples. To the economic comment, I added this language here about concern of economic disadvantage for our communities while Washington and Multnomah counties continue to prosper. Happy to wordsmith any of these, of course. I believe, oh no, I added one more near the end. This was Mr. Myers, your comment. We understand the severity of the proposal. And Councilor Sherman, I see your comment in the chat about constitutional restrictions. I will add that to the transit section over here.
Doug McLean from River Grove, you have a comment, sir?
You know, you mentioned something about Clackamas County being the only one involved in this, and none of the other counties, you know, Multnomah or Washington also, you know, are being involved in this, but especially Multnomah. It might make some sense that we try to encourage the state to take a bigger approach to this tolling if it's going to go that way. And before they just hit it up with Clackamas County, the first thing, try to get the other counties' programs up and going so they implement everyone at the same time. And that might take some of the pressure off of us and bring in some other support from the other cities going up 205, you know, Portland, Gresham, Troutdale, whatever.
Yeah, it's my understanding, I could be wrong, but my understanding is that we offered them, we offered them to be signers on the letter and or something along the lines that they somehow have signaled that they would not sign on to our letter, or suggested that AOC which should sign on to the letter, AOC being the Associated Oregon Counties, one or the other, but we've got the sense that they're not willing to sign on to that letter.
Okay.
And the letter's been submitted, is that right, Mayor Buck?
Yes, yeah, it was submitted today.
Yeah, your letter was submitted. That was the one that they had asked for, not ours, but the mayor's letter, which included Marion County. So, all right. So, anyone have any alterations or edits, thoughts on what Everett captured?
Commissioner Savas, if I might just make a quick note of comment to the last question about the other counties' involvement. I just wanted to note that we've been working with many of the other regional partners, including the counties. And just because their logos aren't on that letter doesn't mean that they don't share concerns about the approach to tolling right now. I think everyone shares concerns. It's when we start trying to articulate what we want where it kind of falls apart. It's difficult. So just sharing that we are working closely with our partners, including Washington, Multnomah County, and many others that aren't represented on the letter, but are a part of an ongoing conversation.
Okay, thank you for sharing. Could you scroll to the bottom of the letter, Martin? I want to follow up with your statement. I know that we said a lot, you've learned a lot, Jimmy shared a lot. Do you think that statement's correct or appropriate, knowing that you all know now that we have experts on that? It seems to be the fact that we've shared that, I won't say redundant, but what are your thoughts?
Only I would add a lawyer-like comment that say, and we reserve the right to supplement this submission, something like that. But no, I feel much more excited about what's going on. I'm really happy. I'm coming out of this with an entirely different feel than I came into it. Thank you, everybody.
So you're suggesting we strike that in sentence and add?
No, maybe leave it. I would say leave it and say, and to the extent necessary, we would supplement this submission.
So if I may jump in here, the public comment period closes on April 21st, and there would not be an opportunity following that. And this is the only C4 meeting until May. So I'm not sure that we would have another opportunity to comment anyway.
I don't care. I'd do it anyways. I'd submit it anyways. I wouldn't worry the deadlines. They've moved the deadlines every time they felt like they needed to. I think just tell them we're going to submit, we'll supplement. If we can't, we can't. But I'd say.
So is it fair to say, here's my technicality, Martin, C4 is not hiring anyone?
Yeah.
Right. So I just wondered, that's not really appropriate because we're not hiring anyone. It's not C4. So this letter's coming from us as C4. So how would you adjust the language accordingly?
I would say, as experts weigh in on the substance of the EA, C4 reserves the right to supplement this objection, submission, whatever we're calling it.
Okay.
Yeah, just reserves the right, and we can send it in if they don't. We are directly impacted by all of this. I believe they're going to listen and look at whatever we send in. If not, it's there for FHWA.
Okay. Okay, great. Mayor Hodson?
I was just going to add to Martin's point there that, even the statement is made and whatnot, and we do submit it, they don't read it, then that just adds to the public relations quagmire that they're in.
Okay. Well, great. Well, good work, anyone. Anything else? Okay, great. So Everett, just clean that up and tomorrow, whatnot. And whatever wordsmithing is appropriate, and we'll send that off, and Mayor Hodson and I will sign that on your behalf.
Do we need a motion?
Yeah,
we need a motion?
My recommendation would either be to have a motion tonight, or if you would like, have the executive committee approve the letter on Monday after you see my final cleanup wordsmithing.
I would move to approve it with wordsmithing, assuming that you make it the way we discussed it. I would file a motion to approve it the way it's been amended.
Okay, Mayor Hodson, take over.
Silva will second it.
Okay, so motion's been made by Mr. Myers and then seconded by Mr. Silva to approve the letter as amended. Any further discussion? Show of hands in their windows of those in favor. Thank you. Those that are opposed. Any abstentions? All right, looks like we will move forward with this letter with the amendments made. Thank you everyone for the conversation and discussion. Again, passionate as always. I think we can probably blitz through the next couple of pieces here pretty quickly. the EA fact sheet, I think that's just, it is what it is. I think we've seen that before. That's in our packets to continue to share and get the word out even after I think the town halls and meetings cease. I think there'll be more information that the more we can share it, the better. And then Everett, I'm not sure anything about the landing page and the draft EA that you want to touch on.
Those were just informational only.
Perfect. We'll move into conversation about the C4 retreat planning. And Everett, I'll throw that over to you.
Excellent. So in your packet is a draft agenda for discussion with Friday, the afternoon and evening sessions being focused on housing, and the Saturday morning sessions focused on transportation. Still opportunities to narrow focus the agenda as we get closer and find out what topics could be of relevance and of significance to you. So really opportunity for you all tonight to discuss what you would most like to focus on. A few technical housekeeping things. The registration form has been completed. I have it. I just got it right before the meeting, and we'll send it out afterwards. We have 35 rooms reserved at the hotel on a first come, first serve. So feel free to email your registration form back to me or to Trent, and we will get you registered. Payment by check only. We're old fashioned here at the county. So please mail a check in or drop it off, or if you need other arrangements to be made, let us know. If more than 35 people register to spend the night, we can work with the hotel and see if we can get extra rooms. We encourage your entire city council, city commission to attend, even if it's just for the day and people don't want to spend the night. Everyone is welcome. It's a great opportunity to kind of bring together all of the cities, not just the C4 members and alternates. So with that, if you guys have feedback on the discussion agenda.
Everett, I know you said check. Will you take Venmo?
No, we are old fashioned. Sorry.
Sorry, just trying to add a little levity here to our evening.
How about Bitcoin?
Everett, can I send it?
Oh,
by
Bitcoin. Yeah,
carrier
we
pigeon?
definitely can do that.
Everett, can I send it by carrier pigeon?
Yes, definitely carrier pigeon.
Okay, just want to make sure. By Pony Express.
Yeah, I opened up a can of worms there. Sorry, Everett. Yeah, so in our packet there, you see the survey that was sent out, and those 10 people that responded to the questions about the agenda, and then there is a potential agenda there in the packet. Are there any feedback, thoughts, changes, recommendations, etc.?
Just wondering about timing. It says PM and AM, but I'm wondering if there's been some discussion about what those parameters are shaping up to look like, so we can. I have a conflict on that Saturday, so I want to make sure that we have coverage from our council if necessary.
So the retreat generally begins at 1 o'clock on Friday, 3 to 4 hours of sessions with breaks. And then on Saturday morning, it's about the same, ending right around lunch or just before lunch. The timing of the individual sessions each day is of course still flexible depending on what they end up being.
Yeah, normally we open it up around noon. We go into the around 4 or 5-ish. We break, have some social time. Next morning we hit it hard and break at lunch and depart. So it's one afternoon and one morning, typically. And anyone's welcome on the, but yeah, so just so you know, it doesn't have to be a C4 member, the public's welcome, any counselor, district member, water district board, whatever, you all are all welcome, and your fellow council and commissioner and director members as well, so you all know.
Commissioner Savas,
Yes.
and I suggest we have combined the Saturday I-205 RMPP session with a psilocybin therapy session.
So yeah, are you suggesting that you go on a mushroom hunt out in the woods?
It may be the only way.
Okay, all right.
Pretty sure that's banned in that jurisdiction.
Yeah, I think it is, but you know, that's funny.
That is pretty good. Okay, that's perfect. And everyone's good with the agenda and those really being the items. All right. Well, I think Everett, we'll flesh out some details, and the exec committee will work with you on fleshing out even more if we need to, and then come back with probably a final agenda for the May meeting.
Absolutely. You took the words right out of my mouth. Yes.
It's not my first rodeo, sir. This is pretty good. So, okay, that's done with that. Updates and other business. JPAC, who's got an update?
There was, I'll do that real fast. It was not a lot of, nothing really meaty on there. There was a small resolution to the MTIP for a project for an adjustment. We had a legislative update during that period of time. So the lobbyist gave their update on what's happening in Salem. And then there was also a presentation from the city of Portland on their project in Montgomery Park. So they've got sounds like a huge development project, very, very exciting. So that was really nice. The excitement of the morning was really the discussion around a motion that I made to send a letter to ODOT to extend the comment period. And for sake of discussion, and as you all know, and even today, we received a letter from ODOT saying, well, we got your letter, thanks, but we've done quite a bit, and we're not going to add any more. So that's the flavor. That's the outcome of that motion. But we did get virtually every jurisdiction that owns roads and has transportation facilities to sign on to it, with the exception of TriMet, or I think TriMet voted for it. Yeah, TriMet voted for it. So that's my update. Mayor, back to you.
Thank you very much. MPAC. Going once.
Brett, do you want to take it?
Sure, I can take it. Mayor Buck, it's up to you. We had a conversation on the UGB management decision and how housing production has lagged despite the increase in UGB expansions in the past. They kind of boiled it down to some common barriers, some which resonated with me and some which I felt were a tad disingenuous. But generally it comes down to parcel size and developability, market alignment, infrastructure serviceability, costs and funding plans, and then governance and local leadership. They indicated as a hindrance to housing production in the various areas. And I think for me, one of the things I thought was pretty interesting is as they talk about some of the common barriers, quite often we kind of go back to high parking requirements and landscape requirements and things that are just nibbling around the edges that, if you're talking about truly what impacts housing production, those are very minor. And I thought it was really interesting that some of the common barriers came across. They listed two common barriers. One is high parking requirements, which is a barrier. And then they also later on talked about how market demand for parking is also a barrier. So in theory, people who buy the properties want parking, but then the demand for that parking is also a barrier to production. So I wasn't exactly sure how those resonated. We also had an update on supporting housing services and the affordable housing bond reports, and also an update on the Expo Center future projects and what potentially could happen out there. So that's the quick update. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Next, any update on the Climate Action Plan Task Force?
I have a statement from Councilor Pratt that she wanted me to pass on. The Climate Action Plan Task Force met today and they expressed various concerns about the Climate Action Plan Implementation Guide. The biggest issue revolve around the consultants taking input from the group and then making very few changes, not explaining their process. In addition, changes were not made to customize the plan to the unique aspects of Clackamas County or to incorporate state or metro requirements, such as Oregon's climate friendly and equitable communities rules. So the committee is going to be expecting responses from the consulting firm, and after those concerns were expressed to them today. So expect a follow-up from Councilor Pratt on that.
Great, thank you very much. Any other business? Once, twice, sold. Perfect. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And Brett seconds. Perfect. All those in favor? I'm shocked. It was unanimous. Hey, thank you, everyone. It was great to see everyone. Have a great month. We'll see everyone in May.